Hello and welcome. My name is Patrick Dailey, and this is episode 2 of Daily Life. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you guys to the podcast, whether you're watching the YouTube channel or you are listening to the podcast on any sort of podcasting site or podcasting service. I would like to warmly welcome you. It is so great to have you guys, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, or when you are listening to this podcast, I would like to warmly welcome you. So the purpose of Daily Life is to empower people, to have them reach their potential and to become better one day at a time, even if it's just a little bit, one piece at a time. Every single day, we're always getting better, becoming the best that we can be, empowering people to empower others, and just spreading the love, spreading the joy and the positive energy, the positive vibes to people. So part of the vision of this is to create community and creating this empowering community, because let's face it, life is something there's a lot of craziness that's going on in the news media, on social media, or maybe something that's going on in your personal life, something that's going on with friends or with family or whatever country you're in. There may be a lot of craziness that's going on. I know with the rise of COVID-19 and the pandemic, the continuation of the pandemic, the Omicron variant, the Delta variant, and all of these other things that are going on, and that's just one piece of one of the many things that's going on, I know, in the United States where I live, or whatever country you're in. No matter what it is that's going on in the world, we should have a beacon of hope. We should be a light in the darkness that shines on for others to inspire people and to empower you. So that's a little bit of the vision of Daily Life. So today I want to talk to you guys about life lessons. You know, something that's really interesting in life is that life is short. You know, we have, statistically speaking, I mean, think about it. You have people who live in their 30s, people who live till they're 40, 50, 60, all the way up to 100, or even beyond that. You know, my grandmother, she died at 102. She was actually born in 1918, and that's something that's really a shocker when I think about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine what it would be like to reach 80, 90, 100, or even beyond that. So that's something that's really great. My grandmother made a really great impression on me in her 102 years here on Earth, and I hope that in the same way that my grandmother has made an impression on me, I can make an impression on you. And I mean, even if it's a small little bit, and maybe you can do the same. I hope that you guys, wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching or listening to this, I hope that you make a great impact upon the lives that you interact with. So with that, let's think about this. There are many life lessons that we learn. You know, when we think about education, we constantly think about the education system, right? Where you're going to class and you're learning lessons from the teacher, but there's other lessons that we can learn in life. And there's lessons that we learn from everyday living, from everyday life. Some people would call this the school of hard knocks, right? When we're living life and we're experiencing everyday interactions with people, be that our parents, be that our friends, be that our coworkers, be that other students or siblings, you know, your family, your extended family. There's so many interactions that we have every single day. And one thing that I want to bring up to you guys is you have to, whenever you go through a situation, whether it's a good situation or a bad situation, I want you guys to ask yourself this simple question: what can I learn from this interaction? What can I learn from this experience? What can I learn from this circumstance? It's a very easy question when you think about it, but every day you interact with people. Now, it may be I may interact with less people than you, or I may interact with more people than you do, or whatever it is. This isn't a contest. When you think about it, you will have interactions with people on a day-to-day basis, unless you're a hermit crab, or unless you don't interact with people. I mean, don't interact with anyone at all, and you're in that solitude. Okay, well then that may be a little bit different. Your experience may be very different than mine, and that's kind of one of the beauties of life is that my experience is different than your experience. So all that to say, the interactions that you have with life, with other people in life, there are lessons that we can learn from them. When we think about this business of life, There's going to be highs and lows, right? There's going to be hills and valleys. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be seasons in life. And so with that, every single day, you might meet someone for the first time and never see them again, but there may be a lesson that you learn from that one person. And that's something that's really beautiful when you start looking at life that way, thinking to yourself, what am I going to learn from this person that I'm talking to on the phone? Or what am I going to learn from this person? Now, it may be a very small and microscopic lesson, but it may be a great lesson, or it may be a reminder of something. Something that I find to be very interesting is this idea of synchronicity, or something known as kind of repetition of things that we hear in life. For example, let's say I hear on the radio, or I'm, on Facebook, and I'm hearing about how we need to forgive our friends or forgive other people for the wrong that they've done for us. I may hear that one time on Facebook, but then I may hear it from a conversation from a coworker that didn't see the post that I saw. And then I may hear it by having a phone call with my mother, or it may be something that I hear in the grocery store when someone's talking about, I need to forgive my uncle for the wrong that he's done, or maybe I need to seek forgiveness for the wrong that I've done. And it could go on and on. And it's this idea that there's things that kind of line up like that really nicely. Now, as a Christian, I do identify as a Christian. One thing that can happen is that you find the hand of God, right? You find that there's this lining up. Like I said, it's called synchronicity. It kind of depends on what background you have, but it's this repetition of a lesson that happens in life. And I think we have to observe what happens in our own life. We have to be mindful of what happens in our life. We have to be aware of the people that we interact with, because let's face it, the life that you live as a human being, as a person, will have a profound impact on people. You may not realize how big or how small it may be, but it will have an impact nonetheless. It's like every day, if you go to Starbucks every day, or if you go to the gas station and you get your cup of Joe. I'm always on the go, so I'm always having a cup of coffee in the morning. The barista that I see every morning, or that goes to show you how much Starbucks I drink. But every time I interact with someone, you see the same people over and over. And it's like, wow, you kind of have maybe not a deep relationship, maybe not even a deep friendship, but there's that sense, that energy, that who you are as a person, how you behave, how you treat them, that will affect them and they will affect you. So it's like this mutual, it's kind of like this two-way street from the lessons they can learn from you and the lessons you can learn from them. And that's just one person. That's not even considering all of the people that happened. So, oftentimes when I'm talking about, hills and valleys, when I'm talking about ups and downs, there's going to be good situations that you go through, and there's also going to be bad situations that you're going to go through. It would be wrong of me to say that life is going to be easy. It would be wrong of me to say that life is going to be perfect. We as human beings, we live in this earth where, let's face it, it's not perfect. There is a lot of bad things that happen in the world, right? There's crime, there's theft, stealing, there's people who say racist remarks. There's tons of different things that happen in this imperfect world. And we as human beings, we are imperfect. And that's something that, I know we try to be perfect, but we're never going to be perfect, because even if I am perfect, to someone else's, their eyes, their mind, their way of thinking, I may not be perfect to them. And that's a whole other perspective with that. So the whole point of that is, in the human condition, in us living here on earth, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but we certainly should do the best that we can with what we have. We certainly should, take ownership, take responsibility of our life, and do the best we can in everyday life. Now, granted, we're going to have good days and bad days, like I'm saying. And it's in those times when we have a bad day, or when something bad happens to us, where we got to seek counsel. If you believe in God, seek God, or seek other people, seek your tribe, seek people who you can talk to, right? I've always thought of this idea that when something bad happens to us, there's this understanding that there's things that we cannot change. but it's what we do after what's happened bad to us, We move forward. And so all of this is kind of tied in together, right? So I'm focusing on this idea that we're going to learn lessons from every single person that we interact with, that we talk to, that we have relationships with, professional relationships or personal relationships or deep friendships, or just someone that you see going by in the grocery store. We're going to learn that lesson, even if we're having a bad day, even if we're having a good day. And sometimes, in my own personal experience, something that I have learned is that sometimes the most difficult of people, I learn the most from them. I once had a coworker in one of the jobs that I used to have where I butted heads with them all the time. There was criticism of how I was performing. Now, granted, I did the best I could, as an employee, but it was more of like a personality conflict. But I learned lessons from this coworker about how to handle a different personality that was different than mine. And even though, we were working together, we were coworkers, we were getting the job done, I did learn a lot of lessons about patience and understanding their perspective, their story. And how often do we go about our life and we're trying to force ourselves onto other people? But really, sometimes when we have that conflict, it's almost like, the universe, that God is trying to say, hey, look, here's another perspective. Observe, listen, take some time for a moment and just see their other perspective. And I sometimes think that we tend to say we do that, but we really don't. And we should see where someone is coming from. It's like those, there's a lot of sayings where it's saying we gotta walk a mile in someone else's shoe. We've got to see their perspective and hear where they're coming from. And I know, granted, sometimes it can be hard to do. Look, I'm not perfect in that. There's many times that I don't understand. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? But what is your perspective? You believe this? But I shouldn't cast judgment on them. I need to try to understand with everything that I am where someone is coming from. It's exhibiting love. It's exhibiting understanding. It's showing kindness towards other people, right? It's just as the Bible, right? Just as Scripture says, or even other religions talk about this, the golden rule, do unto others, right? Treat others with kindness and with respect. So even though you may have a bad situation or there's a person that you cannot tolerate or someone that you cannot deal with very well or someone that you're butting heads with them, you can learn lessons from them in the same way when you're in having the best of days, or in the same way that you're having a really fantastic day. It's like, hey, I learned something new. That's awesome. What about those bad days? We still have the opportunity to learn lessons from other people. So something I want to ask, you got to ask yourself is conflict good? Well, it can be. I mean, certainly there's, I would say, good conflict and bad conflict, but in conflict, it's an opportunity for you to see the other perspective. It's the opportunity for you to listen instead of speaking. It's for you to think and consider this other person. And I think very often when we are in conflict, when we are butting heads with other people, we should listen to that other's perspective. And something like I'm saying here, ask yourself, what can I learn from this person, this situation, this circumstance? Look at it as a lesson that we can learn. And I'm not saying, I'm going to learn as many lessons as possible. Don't treat people as numbers. Treat them as human beings. Treat them as a name and not a number. Treat them as, I genuinely want to know where you're coming from. Show that authenticity. Show that genuineness. Show them like, you know what? Hey, I have a good relationship with you, or maybe I don't have a good relationship with you. There's a lesson that I can learn from you and you can learn from me. It's that mutual thing. We do the best we can with what we have. That's something you're going to hear me say a lot of. And that's something that I have kind of learned through, the books that I've read, the courses that I've taken. And I also do believe that in everything we do in excellence. Granted, we're not perfect though, right? We strive for excellence and not perfection. And even though we may have those times of darkness, we may be in that dark place externally, right? Or even internally, we can come to light by our thoughts, our actions, and our will. And we can seek the light, right? We can, no matter what it is you're going through, you can choose light, life. You can choose truth. There is a path out of darkness. Now, granted, sometimes it may be professional help. Sometimes it may be changing the way that you think. Sometimes it may be the people you're interacting with. But understand that you are in control of who you are as a person. You have the mind, you have the heart, you have the ability to respond to what anything life is going to throw at you. Remember, every single circumstance, there will come a lesson. Every single person, there will come a lesson. So when a bad event happens in our life, yes, do we react to it or do we respond to it? There's a famous saying that I absolutely love. It's a really good one. It says that responsibility is responding with ability. It is the ability to respond. And I just think that that's just such a really cool way of looking at it, right? That we can respond to a situation with ability. You have that ability in you. This is what I personally believe in, and I know not everyone's going to agree with what I believe in, but I believe that each and every single person is gifted, that they have strengths and abilities, that they have potential that is within them. I firmly believe that it is God-given potential, that you were created by a creator, and that creator gave you potential, and it is up to you to decide what you are going to do with that potential, what you're going to do with your life. Like I was saying earlier, life is incredibly short. So make the best of your life. There's so much to learn in life. There's so much to experience, the good and the bad. And I mean, look, there have been many times I've been in dark places. There have been many times where, I was suffering, where I was struggling. There was times where I was depressed. There was times where I was really overwhelmed. And that's the reality of that. And I have to think, what can I learn from this? How am I going, and with those lessons, what am I going to do with those lessons, right? How am I going to implement those lessons into my life, right? Okay, I'm learning, from this situation that maybe I shouldn't have done the action that I did, or maybe I should have done it differently, right? You learn those lessons and you move forward with it. Don't repeat the same mistake that you made. Move forward with it, right? So when I'm talking about this idea of learning life lessons, right? We learn, we grow, we implement, we move on. And with those lessons, we teach other people the lessons, the knowledge, the wisdom, the insight, the information. We share that with other people. And so just think of how many lessons you as a person can learn just through simple observation, just by asking yourself those kind of questions, just by taking time to learn from someone else's perspective, learning from their experiences, right? Because when you think about it, like, if you have a mentor, for example, that's a very positive thing to have. And I encourage having a life coach, having a spiritual director, having someone who can mentor you even, or a good friend who's gone through the same experience or a similar experience. When you think about it, they're telling you the experiences in a positive light. And that's something that is very fruitful, to have a mentor who can help you, right? You're learning the lessons, you're learning from their mistakes, you're learning from their experiences, and you're taking it all in. And as you take it all in, think of how you can use that knowledge and then implement it into your life. When we're learning stuff in school, we're learning from other people. And so that's something that's just really, really awesome. When we really think about that, is that there's so many lessons that we can learn by simple observation. But learning those life lessons, that's the first point. That's the first thing you have to do, is learn those life lessons from every circumstance, from every person, if you can. I know that takes practice. I know that takes time. And through that practice, you'll learn, okay, I'm learning this, or I'm seeing that synchronicity that I'm talking about earlier. Now, because of what I have learned, I'm going to use this in my own life, and I'm going to implement it because I've seen what my actions do, or I've seen what this terrible situation, or I've seen what this great situation has taught me, so I can continue to move forward. Now, here's the cool thing about this, is that as you are learning, you can have discussions with other people. It could be your friends, it could be your mentors, your network, your tribe, whatever it is. You can find people to have those discussions with. Hey, I've learned this. Have you learned anything? I haven't learned anything. Or, you know what, I have. In fact, I've learned this in addition to that. And so that's how we just build upon our foundation in our life, right? That's just one of the great things. So how else do we learn life lessons? We learn it through experience, right? We learn it through conversations. We learn it through observations. We also, we obviously learn through the books that we read, the courses that we take, right? Whether that's formal education or informal education. And we can learn even in our darkest of times and even in our highest of times. You can learn what not to do. You can learn what to do. It's kind of like when you're dating, right? You learn what not to do, right? Or who you don't want to date. Well, now you learn what you do want. And so it's just through those experiences that it's just such a wonderful opportunity for you guys. As we learn those lessons, we implement them into our own lives and we move forward in our life. So one quote that really comes to mind that I really love here, this is from Earl Nightingale. It says, "All you need is a plan, the roadmap, and the courage to press on to your destination." So I know each and every one of us, we have potential and we have purpose. And through that purpose, we need to go to the goal, go to the prize, go to it. And you see to it that you don't stop at that goal, no matter what it is. And as you're going through that goal, you're going to meet a lot of people. I think of this idea. I have this visual image where it's like you're going on a path, right? It's your life path. And as you're going through the journey, right, you're going on the pathway, the road, whatever it is, you're going to meet people along the way. And these people are going to teach you lessons that will help prepare you for further down the road. And if you don't learn that lesson, then you may stumble a little bit. How often have you learned the same lesson over and over, but yet you haven't done anything about it? How often has that happened? I know for me that's happened a lot of times, where it's like, okay, it's kind of frustrating, but that's the reality of it, is that there are many times where we'll have a repeat of the same lesson over and over, and we got to figure out what to change differently, how we're going to go forth differently. There's got to be a reason why we're learning that same lesson over and over. So you're going about your life journey. There's certain people you're going to meet. There's certain experiences that you're going to go through. And it's like you put that in your little pouch, right? In your little backpack, or you put it on your whatever it is you're carrying with you, your notebook even. And you put that in there so that as you're leveling up, as you're going through the journey, I learned this all the way back over here. And so now, because of this lesson, I know not to do this, or I know not to talk to that person, or I know, okay, I should do this, or here's a lesson I've never learned, but based upon what I have learned in the past, I have a framework, I have a general understanding, I have a general idea of how to go forth with this. And so it's just kind of building, like I said, it's building upon that foundation as you're going through the journey of life. And then what's really cool about that is as you are progressing, there will be people who, they may be beginning on their life journey, they may be beginning on their life path, and they may ask you that question because you were divinely appointed that you were meant to meet that certain person. That's the cool thing about life, is that you come across people and they may ask you a question, or you may say something out of the blue. It's like, yeah, I need to be more patient, or this person's terrible, or whatever. And they may learn something from you, even though that's not really what you meant. And I think that's kind of interesting. So as you're going along your life path, you may meet someone and you may have a profound impact on them. And that's something that's really interesting, is that always be mindful of that. Always be mindful of the people you interact with, right? Every single day on a day-to-day basis. That's why, when I'm talking about this podcast, when I'm talking about daily life, it's empowering others. Just Just think about who you interact with. Just think about what you say to them, how you treat them. Because you don't know how they see you. Do you even think about the people you interact with every day? How you talk to them, how you treat them, how you behave? I mean, you gotta check yourself, and it's hard. Because sometimes it's like, yeah, we have all these thoughts in our heads, we got a job to do, we got school to do, we've got all these different things that we have to do. But sometimes it's like, wait a minute, I gotta be nice to people. I gotta treat people with respect. I can't be rude to them. So, I mean, how often is it we're on our phones, right? And we're talking, okay, whatever. And you're completely disregarding the person who's right in front of you. And that's hard. Because we live in this world where we're so connected, where we have so much that's going on. I mean, you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, you go on Snapchat, or whatever platform you use, and it's overwhelming with all of this information. It's like this information overload that's happening. It's like, take some time and think about who you're interacting with. So I want to challenge you. Ask yourself this question: who is someone that I'm learning from? Who is someone that I can learn from? And then flip it. Then ask yourself the question, who can I be a beacon of hope to? Who can I, I'm not saying, oh, you have to be the great teacher. Who am I going to teach today? I'm not saying that. I'm saying, who can I treat with respect? That they may see that I'm a good person, that I'm doing the best I can with what I have. Ask yourself that question. Are you doing the best you can in this life with what you've been given? If you're not, then think about how you can do that. Think about how you can take that ownership of your life. Because I believe this who you are as a person, that is the most beautiful gift that has been given to you. And it is up to you to decide what you're going to do with that life. You could either use it for good or you can use it for bad. You can treat people horribly, you can treat people nicely, right? And so that's one of the amazing things is you get to decide what you're going to do with your life, how you're going to spend it. Are you going to, live life with intention, live life with your purpose, trying to reach your God-given potential and be an inspiration for other people. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to go to thousands and thousands of people, like when you see all these gurus and these great teachers and these head of tech companies. It doesn't have to be that large scale. It could be your kid. It could be your boyfriend or your girlfriend. It could be your spouse. It could be your coworker. It could be you may not even have anybody that you love. Well, it could be you're working and you can be an inspiration to them. And that's how we make the world a better place. That's how we are bringing heaven to earth, right? That's how we're being that beacon of hope. Because if you think about it, if we're not doing that, then why are we not doing that? There's so many people who they're existing. There's so many people who are they're in dungeons of their mind, right? They're in a dark place. We've been in dark places. I've been in dark places. You've been in dark places, right? So let's bring people to light. Let's empower them. Let's encourage them. Let's respond with ability. Now, granted, you can't force someone to change, certainly, but you can show them how you live your life. You can, say what you've gone through. You can be real. Look, you can even just listen to somebody. You don't even have to say a word. It's like if somebody's going through a really rough time, you could just sit right next to them and just be present with them. That's another way you can be a light in the darkness. That's another way that you can respond with ability. It's just showing up, just being there for someone. That's an amazing thing that you can do. And there's so much that you can do. So ask yourself that question. Who is someone that you can learn from? And how can you be an example? How can you be a light in that darkness? How can you be the beacon of hope? When you think about a ship that's, sailing on the sea, right? And it's going through stormy waters, that beacon of hope that it sees, that light that is shining through the storm is the most wonderful thing. I mean, I've never been on a ship in a stormy sea, but I can imagine, right? I can use my mind and imagine that. That must be the most glorious sight to see. That must be to see literally a light that's shining in that darkness when there's stormy waters that are happening in life. How often do we go through stormy waters in our life? How often do we wish we could see someone who just gives us a smile and shows that act of kindness, right? It's like when we're thinking about random acts of kindness. You have no idea what the ripple effect will be like. You have no idea what someone is going through. You go to work every single day and you think about it. I know that with COVID-19, there's a lot of, there's face coverings, right? But that's not the only type of mask that's out there. There are people who wear masks to hide their emotions, right? So with people that you interact with, right, I've talked so much about lessons that you can learn, but let's flip that for a second. Let's think for a second. You have no idea what the person next to you is going through. You have no idea what the people you interact with on a day-to-day basis are going through. You have no idea if they're going through a divorce. You have no idea if they're contemplating suicide. You have no idea if they're struggling with an anxiety or depression. You cannot even fathom what they're going through. And then on top of that, do you even understand what you're going through? Do you understand your own emotions? I'm not saying that to bring you down, but think about it. We have no idea what the next person is going through. We can do the best we can to understand ourselves and our emotions and work with that, whether that is seeking professional help or whether that's, like I said earlier, like it's changing our thoughts. Whatever that is, that's something that we can become aware of. But to fully understand what someone is going through, their situation and circumstance, that's almost impossible to do with every single person that you interact with. That's a very difficult thing to do. And so consider how you behave. Consider how you act towards people. Consider how you talk to people. I'm not saying this to be, you have to be perfect. No, just it's something to think about. That giving someone a smile is free. Smiling at someone, saying please, saying thank you, it's stuff we learn as children. But yet, how often do adults not say please or thank you? How often do adults, are they rude? They cut in line, they lie, they cheat, they steal. How often does that happen? Sometimes I think children are more well-behaved than adults. Maybe not all the time, because children can be a mess and a handful, I should know. But with that, it's like, what lessons are people learning from you? So in the beginning, I was saying, what lessons can you learn from people? But I did mention that it's a two-way street. So what lessons are people learning from you? Now, granted, you have no idea how they're going to respond to you, or if they're going to react, right? Is it going to be an emotional response? Is it going to be well thought out? How is that even going to manifest? How is that even going to work? But you can still do the best you can by going about your life every day with your interaction and with intentionality, by being real with people, not by being so angry, not by looking at yourself and how you behave around other people. I've heard this a few times before. I don't know who originated this, so if you wrote it, then awesome. But it's this idea: would you tolerate yourself? Like, if you were to spend a day with yourself, would you be able to handle yourself? Some people wouldn't. I think most of us, even myself, I don't think I could handle myself. I tell my wife this all the time. I'm so glad you married me, because I wouldn't marry myself. But that's the reality. I know I have my shortcomings. My wife has her shortcomings, but we do the best we can by putting 100% effort in our marriage. But we have to look at ourselves sometimes. We have to think about how we're acting and how we're behaving towards our brothers and sisters, as the Bible said, or our neighbor, right? One thing from the pastor of the church that I go to always talks about loving neighbor. And that's it's a biblical truth, right? It's because, like I said, guys, I identify as a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the Bible. And a lesson that really sticks out to me all the time is, are we loving our neighbor? What I mean is that, how are you treating other people? Your neighbor can literally be someone who's next door to you. It can be a family member. How are you treating other people? These are questions that we certainly have to think about when we're doing these kinds of things. Is we have to use our mind with that, right? And so it's analyzing, right? In the first episode I was talking about the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, the professional, right? The psychological even. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm going to, full disclaimer, I am not a doctor, but it's really thinking about just analyzing our current situation. It's taking a moment out of our busy day. I mean, how often do we just sit there and appreciate the life that we have? How often do we really just take time and say, you know what, this is the trajectory I'm going? Or, you know, how did I really talk to this person? Did I really listen to what they said and how they said it? It's those kind of questions that we have to think about. And so as we've been in the winter months, right, we talk about sadness, we talk about depression and darkness, we talk about coldness, but through that comes new beginnings. I don't want to guilt trip any of you. I want you just to think about who you are as a person. Take the time to think about that, right? Think about how you can, it's a brand new year. We're in the year 2022. And that, to me, that's insane that we're, you know, that time is flying by so much. But with time flying by, we make the best of our lives. We do the best that we can, right? There's hope for a better future. There is something that our lives, we can reflect on it. And we can become better people every single day. Every day we have the opportunity to learn, we have the opportunity to grow, we have the opportunity to influence somebody in a positive light. So analyze it, think about it, think about who you are becoming, think about who you are. If you don't like the way that you treat people, you can change that, and that's something that's really great. If there are lessons that you haven't learned or things that you feel like you're learning over and over, think about what you could do differently. That's just one of the beauties of life, is that every single day, it's a new beginning. It's a new start. And what are you going to do with that? And so with that, you guys, this is Daily Life. My name is Patrick Dailey, and I thank you so much for listening to this podcast, watching this YouTube video. You guys have been so supportive and so great with this. I really appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. Thank you guys so much.